Hi, this is Beru, and I'm going to walk you through healing the Heroic Omnotron Defense System Encounter from a resto druid perspective. This is probably one of the more challenging encounters that you're going to face in this tier of raid content, largely because the learning curve is pretty unforgiving, because there is always going to be differing combinations of constructs that you have active and are going to need to deal with. You see here that we start with Magmatron. The entire raid groups up on Magmatron, and as he casts this first acquiring target, everyone in the raid moves away from that person by moving through Magmatron to the other side. That target requires a lot of heals, sometimes cooldowns, depending on how the healing on it is going. You're going to see I go into Tree of Life here early in the fight to combat this incineration security measure, but also so that I can use Tree of Life again later on in the encounter. Again, we've got an acquiring target. Everyone moves away from that person, and you're going to see that I'm pumping healing touches into them to keep them stable just because of the amount of damage they take. I usually cast 3 healing touches for that. One almost as soon as they start, receiving the debuff, so that it lands as soon as the flamethrower starts, and then 2 that will land once during the flamethrower and once just after. We will tank all of the golems except for Toxitron here in the middle of the room. And that's just because it's an easy focal point for the raid to group up on and deal with. And then as the golems reach 50 energy, our tanks move them away from the rest of the raid so that they don't accidentally get clipped. Now, I am going to get a Shadow Conductor on me, which is Nefarian warping the Lightning Conductor. So I step out of the raid to handle the Lightning Conductor, but about 2 seconds after, I'm going to come back in for the Shadow Conductor. This is a very healing intensive fight. You're going to see that I'm raid healing here, and I'm going to be spreading out life blooms, keeping Swift Mend on cooldown, keeping Tree of Life on cooldown, keeping Wild Growth on cooldown, basically just to help deal with all the damage in the fight. I'm also going to keep my life bloom on one of the tanks here to help the tank healers in the encounter keep the tanks stable. You're going to see right there that those nice glowy puddles that you can usually use has just grown, and we're moving out of it, and I almost was just too close to that flamethrower and had to run out of it straight away. One comment that I'm going to make about the puddles is that I actually removed the beneficial buff that you get the puddles in from grid because it cluttered my screen, but it also prevented me from seeing who was not getting out of the bad puddle, because the bad puddle has a different spell ID on it, and so I wasn't able to tell who was still standing in the bad puddle to either toss them a Hail Mary heal or to let them know that they needed to move out of it, and that really helped me a lot in that respect. So we've got these green gas clouds coming in, and you're going to see that the raid always moves to the right of the green gas clouds. That is pretty much our point when there's a gas cloud in the center of the raid. And it's just so that we can stay grouped up as a team. Now, I've been chosen there with the poison protocol, so I come to the back of the room. The way we handle that is the poison protocol targets are always going to move to the door in the middle of the door so that all of the poison comes to the same spot. I popped into Tree of Life on cooldown again, and so you're going to see here that I'm still in it as we get pulled into that gas cloud by Nefarian, and I'm just working fervently to get the raid topped off, to survive the next big burst AE damage that we're going to have. We move into this friendly puddle. We know that Nefarian's not going to convert it because we were all just pulled into the gas cloud. And so we bloodlust while all of our ranged DPS are in the friendly puddle. One thing I think I probably want to mention is about the interrupts that need to happen when our Canatron is up. The interrupts can pretty much one-shot anybody in the raid, so it's really important that you deal with the interrupts efficiently. We assign 3 people to handle them, and we double up in pairs of 2. So there'll be a tank plus an interrupter in one pair, and then 2 interrupters in the second pair, so that there are always 2 people that handle interrupting on our Canatron. That ensures that even if one person has to move, it's never missed. The other thing that we really require all of our interrupters to do is to make sure that they have a /say macro so that everyone can see when they've interrupted. So if they miss an interrupt, we know whose interrupt it is, what interrupt it is, and that sort of thing. It's very helpful. As we continue through the fight, we basically keep bringing the golems to the center of the room. The raid stacks up, usually on the rear end of the golem as we progress through them. And we just continue on with the fight, dealing with the damage as it occurs. You see here that I get the debuff for both the poison protocol as well as the lightning charge again. And so I've stepped out of the raid into my poison protocol position. If there were other people back here with their poison protocol, I would obviously have to move away from them so as not to damage them with the lightning conductor. But as long as there's a trap down, the DPS can generally get those poison adds down before they get out of that frost trap. One thing that I should mention is that we use 8 healers for this fight and 2 tanks. The other thing I don't think I've mentioned just yet either is cooldown usage. We try to save our big cooldowns like Raid Wall, Power Word Barrier, and now that we have, Spirit Link Totem, we'll use that. We try to save them for when there's really unforgiving combinations of damage, such as when Electron has his special ability morphed by Nefarian because there's a ton of raid-wide damage. And we definitely use it if we have Magmatron and Electron up and end up with an incineration security measure on top of the Electron special, which also does a fair bit of damage as well. Other than that, I tend to just, keep the raid up. As I mentioned earlier, keeping my life bloom on the tank, blanketing out rejuves as much as my mana will allow me to, keeping Swift Mend and Wild Growth and Tree of Life on cooldown. All in all, it's a pretty fun encounter once you get the hang of it. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to let me know. I hope you found this helpful, and thank you for watching.